Ludo, ʻluːdoʊ, ʻljuː, is a board game for 2 to 4 players, in which the players race their 4 tokens from start to finish according to die rolls. Like other cross and circle games, Ludo is derived from the Indian game Pachisi, but simpler. The game and its variants are popular in many countries and under various names. History: Pachisi originated in India by the 6th century. The earliest evidence of this game in India is the depiction of boards on the caves of Ajmint. This game was played by the Mughal emperors of India. A notable example is Akbar. In England, Pachisi was modified, using 6-sided dice, and patented as Ludo, in 1896, patent number 14636 nomenclature. In North America, the game is sold under the brand name Pachisi. Variations of the game are sold under the brand name Aggravation, and Trouble. In Germany, this game is called Mensch dich nicht, which means, man, don't get irritated, and has equivalent names in Bulgarian, Croatian, Czech, Dutch, Polish, Russian, Serbian, Slovak, and Slovene. In Iran, the game is called Mensch, which is probably an adaptation of the German name. In Polish it is more commonly referred to as Chinchiki. In Estonia, it is called Elmi. In Greece, the game is called Gamma Kappa Rho Iota Nu Iota Alpha Rho Eta Sigma Grinurus, referring to typical player behavior. In Malaysia and Singapore, it is called. In Macedonia, the game is called, meaning, don't get angry, man. In Sweden it is known as FIA, a name derived from the Latin word fiat, which means, so be it. Common variations on the name are FIASPEL and FIA Mednuff. In Denmark and Norway though, the game is known as Ludo. In Vietnam, it is called Si California Enger, Ludo board. Special areas of the Ludo board are typically colored bright yellow, green, red, and blue. Each player is assigned a color and has 4 tokens of matching color. The board is normally square with a cross-shaped game track, with each arm of the cross consisting of 3 columns of squares, usually 6 squares per column. The middle columns usually have 5 squares colored, and these represent a player's home column. A 6th colored square not on the home column is a player's starting square. At the center of the board is a large finishing square often composed of triangles in the 4 colors atop the player's home columns, thus forming arrows pointing to the finish. Rules: Overview: 2, 3, or 4 may play. At the beginning of the game, each player's tokens are out of play and staged in one of the large corner areas of the board in the player's color. When able to, the players will enter their tokens one per time on their respective starting squares, and proceed to race them clockwise around the board along the game track. When reaching the square below his home column, a player continues by racing tokens up the column to the finishing square. The rolls of a cube die control the swiftness of the tokens, and entry to the finishing square requires a precise roll from the player. The first to bring all their tokens to the finish wins the game. The others often continue play to determine second, third, and fourth place finishers. Gameplay: each player rolls the die. The highest roller begins the game. The players alternate turns in a clockwise direction. To enter a token into play from its staging area to its starting square, a player must roll a 6. If the player has no tokens yet in play and does not roll a 6, the turn passes to the next player. Once a player has 1 or more tokens in play, he selects a token and moves it forward along the track the number of squares indicated by the die roll. Players must always move a token according to the die value rolled, and if no move is possible, pass their turn to the next player. The rolling of a 6 earns the player an additional roll in that turn. If the additional roll results in a 6 again, the player earns an additional bonus roll. If the third roll is also a 6, the player may not move a token and the turn immediately passes to the next player. A player may not end his move on a square he already occupies. If the advance of a token ends on a square occupied by an opponent's token, the opponent token is returned to its owner's yard. The returned token may only be re-entered into play when the owner again rolls a 6. Unlike Pachisi, there are no safe squares on the game track which protect a player's tokens from being returned. A player's home column squares are always safe, however, since no opponent may enter them. Variations. Ludo played in the Indian continent features a safe square in each quadrant, normally the fourth square from the top in the rightmost column. These squares are usually marked with a star. In India, Ludo is often played with 2 dice, and rolling one on a die also allows a token to enter active play. Thus, if a player rolls a 1 and a 6, they may get a token out and move at 6 steps. To get a game started faster, some house rules allow a player with no pieces on the board to bring their first piece into play on any roll, on a 1 or a 6, or allow multiple tries to roll a 6. If a piece lands on the same space as another piece of the same color, the moved piece must take the preceding space. If a player's piece lands on another of their own pieces, they are doubled and form a block which cannot be passed by any opponent's pieces. Some variations permit such blocks to be passed by rolling the 6 or 1. Doubled pieces may move half the number if an even number is thrown. A doubled piece may capture another doubled piece. A board may have only 4 spaces in each home column. All 4 of a player's pieces must finish in these spaces for the player to have finished the game. To speed the game up, extra turns or bonus moves can be awarded capturing a piece or getting a piece home. These may grant passage past a block. In Denmark and some other countries, the board has 8 spaces marked with a globe and 8 with a star. The globes are safe spaces where a piece cannot be captured. The exception is that a player who has not yet entered all pieces can always enter a piece on a roll of 6. If the entry space is occupied by another player's piece, that piece is captured. Otherwise, the entry spaces work like the other globe spaces. A piece which would have landed on a star instead moves to the next star. In Vietnam, it is called See California Nga, where the game is modeled after a horse race with the tokens modeled as horse heads. In this variation, a 1 is given equal status to a 6. Furthermore, once a player's token reaches their home column, it can only go up each square with an exact roll. This means that a person outside the column must roll a 1 to enter the first square, a 2 afterwards to enter the second, and so forth. In some parts of Africa, the following rules are reportedly played. A doubled block also blocks trailing pieces of the player who created the block, or blocks them unless they roll the exact number to land on the block. Additionally, the doubled block cannot move forward until the block that landed upon it moves off again. This reduces the tactical advantage of a block and makes the game more interesting. If the 2 players sitting opposite are partners, the players can exchange numbers. There are 4 safety squares on the board, like castle squares in Pachisi, as well as the safe home squares, where a piece may able to move forwards or backwards and start their turn before previous player finishes. A piece landing on a square with an opponent's piece not only sends the opponent piece back to the starting area but also sends the landing piece to its home square. A player cannot move their first piece into the home column unless they have captured at least 1 piece of any of the opponents. If a player captures the piece of another player, they are awarded a bonus roll. If in the bonus roll, another player's piece is captured, another bonus roll is awarded, and so on. In popular culture, in 1967, Ivor Cutler recorded an album titled ʻLjuː with Beatles producer George Martin. In the Requiem episode of The Avengers, John Steed claims that his cousin Demon Desmond is the world Ludo champion. In the music video for the song, The Name of the Game, by the Swedish pop group ABBA, the 4 members of the group are shown playing FIASPEL. In the 1951 novel The Hive by Camilo José Cela, the character Ventura asks to borrow the Ludo from Doña Celia, the proprietress of a house of assignations.